While everyone has been fixated on the Memphis Grizzlies' hot streak over the last dozen games, there has been one team who has slipped under the radar during that period of time. The team with a record of 8-2, the second best net rating in the league, and the best, and I mean the best defense in basketball over the last 10 games, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. So how have the Mavericks gone from a below 500 team with an average defense to sitting 5th in the Western Conference and looking like the 04 Detroit Pistons? Because don't forget, it was only a month ago that Jason Kidd came out and said this in a press conference.
Well, that's easy. We're built to play offense. We're not built to play defense.
The change Dallas have made as a team, and particularly as a defensive unit, has been quite extraordinary in all honesty. I mean, just to emphasize this, they are an entire 6 defensive rating points ahead of the second-ranked defense in Philadelphia over the last 10 games. And that's the 76ers team with a record of 9-1. That is to emphasize how dominant this defense has been recently. And credit where credit is due, because I, like most NBA fans, was very skeptical of Jason Kidd getting another chance, but regardless of what you think, he's got his players to buy into the other end of the floor, which they haven't done in the last few years under Rick Carlisle. They are playing defense at a higher level with more intensity than ever before, and it's not through one great player that is carrying this defense. I'll talk about a couple of standouts a little bit later, but it is through a collective buy-in, and I think it starts with the likes of Kristaps Porzingis. He's missed a few games with protocol recently, but in the games he's been healthy, he's moved his feet better, he's been more aggressive defensively, and he's looked a lot better. Some of that comes from health, and I think some of that comes from Jason Kidd entrusting him with more responsibility offensively, and in turn, he has taken on that responsibility defensively as well. I think you could say a similar thing about Jalen Brunson, who's been pretty good defensively as well, and I'll definitely talk about Jalen Brunson's offense because we'll get into that. But also, it's been some guys, the likes of Reggie Bullock, Sterling Brown, Frank Ntilikina. These guys have struggled offensively at times. Reggie Bullock's starting to turn that around, which is good. But having more guys in the system and in the rotation that can actually defend as opposed to last year does seem to be reaping its rewards as well. Overall, over the last 10 games, a big reason for this defensive rating is the fact they're keeping teams well below their average 3-point percentage, and some of that comes from luck, sure, but a lot of it comes down to rotations and intensity and consistently getting out to shooters. But before we get any further into the defense, I've got one player I need to talk about. One player that was considered a bust, or at least was completely out of the minds of every NBA fan, Josh Green. Josh Green has come out of nowhere and has been really damn good. He's a guy that you could say has helped contribute to this defensive upturn as well, because he is a guy now playing close to 20 minutes a night recently, and he's really helped. He has really helped. So we have to give Jason Kidd some praise for that, because he is utilizing Josh Green's strengths as opposed to focusing on his weaknesses, in particular, his inability to really shoot the 3-ball yet. But also, there's one man who does deserve a lot of credit as well. He's not in the Mavericks organization he thinks he should have been, apparently he wanted to be, Desmond Bane. Thank you, because I put up the numbers, but before Desmond Bane came out and basically called Josh Green a bust and ridiculed the Mavericks organization for taking him instead of Bane, and I'm not saying Josh Green is a better player than Desmond Bane, but Josh Green has pretty much tripled his production, he's tripled his minutes, everything has gone up since Desmond Bane threw him under the bus. So thank you on behalf of an Australian wanting to see Josh Green succeed, and I'm sure Mavs fans feel the same way. Thank you, Desmond Bane. I think there's a few reasons why I am sold on Josh Green as a really solid role player going forward. Again, the 3-point shot needs to improve for him to become an elite role player, but I think if you look at what he does well, he's already got incredible athleticism, he's got intensity on the defensive end of the floor, but it's offensively that intrigues me a lot. It's really offensively. He's a good slasher, he's a good cutter, he can get to the rim, he can catch lobs, he moves off the ball well, which is good. But it's also his passing. I'm not going to dissect these plays, but just watch a few of these plays from the Portland game. And it's all Green getting the ball off the bounce and then attacking the rim and finding the open shooter or the open cutter. Now, this is incredibly important because if he's playing in lineups with Jalen Brunson or Luka Doncic or even both, Josh Green is not going to handle the ball pretty much at all, but I think if you can entrust him to take the ball, take it off the bounce, and then finds an open shot, that's good because he can either collapse the defense and create an open shot using his vision on these plays like you see, or get straight to the rim. That's where the intrigue is for me with Josh Green, and that's where I think he's a little bit different to what most people would have anticipated as just a pure slasher and maybe a 3-and-D wing. But getting back onto the defensive end of the floor, I think we got to give some credit to two guys in particular, the Mavericks' two best defenders, at least that's what I would say, Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber. And I want to focus on Maxi Kleber in particular because this is a team that doesn't have a ton of rim protection. Kristaps Porzingis can block some shots, but they've played the likes of Marquise Chris, who's played well and he's gotten some minutes, but they don't have a ton of rim protection. So to have Maxi Kleber as someone who can not only block shots, and he's done that really well recently, but also switch out onto the perimeter and switch out onto some bigs. He's versatile. He's like that Swiss Army knife that every good defense wants to have. So to have him doing that is pretty invaluable for this defense. Not to mention, he's shooting the 3 ball at a high clip and at a high percentage. All of those things, he is the quintessential role player for this team. He is the quintessential role player, and Maxi Kleber deserves some respect for doing that. So when he has come back, they've also benefited greatly from that over the last 7 games. Now, I talked about Josh Green and what he's been able to do, and I think the other big standout, someone that was not a bust, but has definitely improved, and a member of the Jalen Brunson fan club since day one. And he is reaping the rewards of getting more opportunity. He is now a starter in this team, and I don't see him letting up that starting spot anytime soon, because when Jalen Brunson has been a starter, and a lot of these games have been without Luka Doncic, but when he's been a starter in over 20 games, these are the numbers he is putting up. These are near all-star level numbers when you compare him to other guys that are being put in all-star conversations. Yes, those guys are out east, but still, when you look at these numbers, he's nearly averaging 20 and 7 as a starter on above league average efficiency, and even more impressively, he's only averaging 2 turnovers a game. Jalen Brunson puts up good numbers, he's putting up really damn good numbers now, but he's just such a perfect fit alongside Luka. They need to pay him. Mark Cuban, I don't care what you have to do, slide him some money under the table, give him a mansion, whatever you have to do, give Adam Silver a mansion. Keep Jalen Brunson. Keep Jalen Brunson at all costs, because not only is he safe with the ball in his hands, he's very safe, very reliable, he can make plays, he can take players off the dribble in isolation, he's a really good isolation scorer, get to the mid-range, get to the rim, can do all of that as a scorer. But he's also a fantastic playmaker and can work off Luka Doncic. He doesn't need the ball in his hands. He's generally been a pretty good 3-point shooter. Recently, he hasn't been amazing, but generally he's been good there. He moves off the ball well. He can cut. He doesn't need the ball in his hands that long to make a good decision either. Jalen Brunson needs to stay. He needs to stay. And honestly, if it wasn't for his improvement, offensively, they would be struggling a lot. Now, they have missed a lot of games without Luka Doncic, so you have to put that into some context. But the offense has been a disappointment. The defense has been fantastic, particularly recently. Could have never expected them to hit these kind of heights. I don't think anyone expected that. But offensively, they need to get it together a little bit. And honestly, it seems very simple, but Jason Kidd has harped on it, and for good reason. This is a team built to shoot the 3-ball that is not shooting the 3-ball well. They're top 10 in attempts, they're bottom 6 in percentage. That kind of sums it up. That sums it up. And honestly, we got to look at the top, because you've got 3 guys who are taking the most threes and are all shooting a career worst from the 3-point line, excluding Tim Hardaway Jr., who is shooting the 2nd worst percentage of his career. Luka Doncic, THJ, and Kristaps Porzingis have all struggled from there, and I think it's kind of as simple as to say, if those guys can get it together, this offense should be looking a lot better. It's Luka Doncic. A Luka Doncic-led offense is going to sleepwalk to a top 15, top 10 offensive rating. They should be doing that, and if they can start knocking down some threes, which it's coming from their main guys, that should get back to at least being league average at some point, then this is going to be a good offense, because Luka has got some criticism for his weight and all of these things, but he's still a great player. He is still one of the best offensive engines in the NBA, and he is still creating looks at such a high rate. People are focusing on what he's not doing well, but what he's doing well is still very apparent. So for him to just get his 3-point percentage up, and for the other two guys that I mentioned to get their 3-point percentage up, Reggie Bullock, who they signed, has been really good over the last 10 games from 3, which is nice because I think he is someone that should help this team a lot. But in general, I think the Mavs are a team that Jason Kidd has got them to buy in, so credit to him. And they've just got these little improvements from the likes of Josh Green. That's really found money. For him to now be playing 15 to 20 minutes a night and actually contributing positively, he's not just getting token minutes. No, he is contributing positively. Jalen Brunson has gone to a different level. Porzingis, for the most part, looks like a better player on both ends of the floor. If he can get his 3-point shot together, that would be fantastic. Luka Doncic is still Luka Doncic. Hasn't been shooting that well, but I think that'll turn around. Tim Hardaway Jr., they've still got a lot of room for improvement, but defensively, the fundamentals seem to be a lot better. They seem to have a lot of guys that have really bought into the defensive principles, which is good. They're still a big unknown because we haven't seen enough of their 3 big guys together, and we'll wait and see, but I think Dallas looked pretty good. I think they've made some improvements from last year, and if their offense can start to fire, and if they can stay healthy, touch wood, then they could be a dangerous team. They could be a dangerous team. Oh yeah, if you made it to the end of the video, you must have enjoyed it a little bit, so if you could drop a like, subscribe to the channel.